Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Lori, and I want to talk to you about your core belief system. Yep, you're like, wow, she's hitting hard. Yes, I'm going to come in because your core belief systems is going to surprise you a little bit, because very often you think that your core belief systems are yours, but they're actually adopted from your childhood or from people around you, right? So let's be clear on how life can sometimes work, right? You're born as a baby, right? You're a baby. Very often you're given a name. Oh, well, most of the time you're given a name. You don't even get to pick it, but you're given a name. You're given sometimes a political and a religious affiliation. You automatically have these expectations put on you. You've been on the planet for 2.5 seconds. You're going to do big things. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Let me just try to get to the next feeding, right? You know what I mean? Like, okay, calm down. So think about that. Now, let's go forward ahead. And let's say now you are at that place where even though the formative years are there, sometimes you can't always recall them, right? So let's say you're 5, 6 years old and you start hearing, well, this is how we do things. This is right. This is wrong. This is what we believe, right? Because, I mean, of course, to be fair, a person can only give you the belief system in which they carry. Okay. So it's not a knock on anybody. It's just, this is what happens, right? So now you, who had no clue how to live life, is told this is what we practice religiously. This is what we practice politically. This is what expectations are from you. This is right. This is wrong. Everything is very like in a box and everything has these rules to it. And now you get to become older. Okay, so now you're older even then, but let's go older once you've started to get your amygdala formed and, or your frontal lobe, not your amygdala, your frontal lobe, the cortex here starts to become mature a little bit. And you start going, I don't know if I really like that. I'm doing these things because I'm supposed to do these things, supposed to, right? And you realize it just doesn't feel like you. You're just going through the motions because you're told you have to do this, you're going to do this, this is what's expected of you. Now you have to ask yourself, are you now projecting that onto other people? Because essentially you're just taking something, because now you had no choice when you were younger, but now you do. And you can say, do I like this? Let me research it. This is where you start getting to know who you are. Do you believe and do you align with what was given to you when you were a child? That's the key. Because now when I say your core belief system, right, you have to say, is this my core belief system? And this is why the introspective work is always going to be the key. I tell this to people all the time. Stop looking outside in. You can't heal externally. You can't. Like from other people, it's great. It looks shiny and it's pretty. But that's not where the healing begins, okay? The healing itself is starting inside and also analyzing what your core belief systems are, right? So if you were told every day you have to make your bed, this is what we do here. It's just making it small. And you grow up and you're like, oh my God, I left the bed unmade today. Now you start to develop this weird perfectionism thing, which it's not real, because perfectionism is going to be individual and it's going to be subjective to each person, right? So perfectionism's not a thing. Who cares? The world didn't explode because you didn't make your bed. The world didn't explode because you didn't run off and get married. The world didn't explode because you didn't follow the lawyer path that the family did. You're going to have to be okay with understanding that some people aren't going to understand it. And that is okay. You gotta stop trying to make everybody else so happy, because you can't. Again, externally can't provide internal peace. It just cannot do that. It can make it happy and, oh, this is jovial, but it's not going to give you the inner peace. And you can't provide that for other people, whether you like it or not. It's just a fact. You can't provide other people's happiness, but you can yours. And so it's working to understand it. So a good little exercise for you to do is to start saying, okay, well, what do I believe? Just write down don't overanalyze this. Just like, hey, what belief systems do I believe in? Okay, now why do I believe that? Well, because that's just what I've known. Okay, we know where it comes from. I asked, what do you believe in? This is where open-mindedness will come into play. This is where you can read, if you grew up in a certain religious background and you feel like you don't align with it, well, look into other religions, look into other spiritual practices. if you don't want to be married, but you feel like everybody in the family keeps pressuring you to be married, they don't have to have a conversation with you about it. You can say, I'm good where I am. And you have to understand that just because it works for you, it might not work for everybody else. And they do have that right to distance themselves. So now you have to ask yourself the second question. Are you willing to establish, and this is an important factor for you, are you willing to establish your own core belief systems with the knowledge that some people may not be in your life any longer? Ask yourself that question, because then you can determine, that question alone will help you determine if you are more codependent, okay, more codependent on these people, and these are your rocks, or are you going to be your rock? See, don't get twisted, family for relatives. You're related, but you cannot be blood related and be family, but you could be related and definitely not be family. So see, these are the things that sometimes you're afraid to explore, which is why your girl's here for it, right? And I'm telling you this because your core value system, it can become stressful when you're like, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't align with me. I'm doing all the motions. I'm going through life. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, which somebody put in your head that that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're literally allowed to not conform to everybody, and you're allowed to walk to the beat of your own drum. I mean, be a contributor of society in some way, shape, or form, but do so in your own beat. So the reason that some of your anxieties and you feel stuck so much, right, is that. It is that because you're like, oh my God, why am I not happy? And again, you're just trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. You're not being mindful. You don't know what it is that you like. You should be able to be your best date, your best lover, your best friend, your best everything. You should be able to walk down the street, and if you want to wear pink, purple, polka dotted pants and a plaid shirt and little teeny tiny glasses and big hoop earrings, do it. If that's who you are, own it. See, you really have to understand that, in society, no matter what society you're in society, you're kind of trained to kind of be like a horse with blinders on. Like, if it doesn't work this way, then it's wrong. And that's where you have to understand, like, that's not a true statement. Just because people do things differently, or you have now stepped out and you've branched off and you've done your own thing, doesn't make it wrong, right? Someone else's limited belief systems don't have to be yours. But very often what has happened is you've adopted these belief systems. Stop adopting belief systems that aren't yours. So that's a little bit of, well, that's not a little bit. It's a lot. See, this is the part of the healing that I think people sometimes don't want to address. They want healing to be fast. They want it to be, comfortable. And it's neither of those things. It's long. It's a constant process. It's daily work. It's all of the above. Every bit of the above. But if you're not willing to be consistent and be uncomfortable and really unravel that maybe for the last 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, 80 years, your life hasn't really been yours. You've been living your life based on somebody else or society's narrative for you. It's okay to not be understood and stop trying to make everybody understand you, and definitely stop trying to understand everybody else. The reason I say that is because when you get good with yourself, you stop being so judgy. Because again, you're working on that little teeny tiny box of belief systems that were given to you and that you've adopted. So that's a little bit of introspective work for you. Shadow work goes a lot deeper than that. So you guys know I do a lot of shadow work as a shaman. I do a lot of shadow work with people. But it's extremely deeper than that. But this is a good little bit of inner child work. It's a little bit of introspective, because for so long you've been told you have to do these things. But says who? What's this perfectionism that you're reaching? And we'll talk about perfectionism. It's coming. Because it's not a real thing. It's not a real thing because it's subjective. What is perfect to you is not perfect to me. I like the mountains. I like fall. I like October. I prefer that over the beach. Some of you prefer the beach. Does that make it wrong for either one of us? Absolutely not. It just makes it our preference. That's the key, is to understand that you're allowed to have a preference and other people are allowed to have a different preference. So that's some homework for you, a little bit of introspective work for you. We will talk about perfectionism soon. And if you want me to do a longer, more in-depth podcast on this topic, unlimited belief systems, changing them, how you would interact them and implement them, please let me know in the comments, because I always want to give you guys more information, just so you have it in your arsenal, because you always want tools in your toolbox.